A hot sun burned over Ouagadougou as cars sped past on a dusty road. By the corner of a busy junction, a man in greasy clothes bent over an old pickup truck. His hands were stained with oil, his face covered in sweat. His name was Thomas. Thomas had once been full of dreams. In his youth, he was the best student in his class, always helping others and believing he would one day change the world. But life had other plans. After his parents died in a fire when he was 16, Thomas had to drop out of school to care for his younger sister. He learned how to fix cars from an old man in the village and moved to the city to start his own small roadside workshop. He barely made enough to eat. Sometimes customers shouted at him for being too slow. Other times he would go home with nothing in his pocket. But Thomas never complained. He believed that as long as he was honest and hardworking, life would get better one day. On this particular day, something strange happened. A long black car stopped at the junction. Men in black suits stepped out and traffic was stopped immediately. People gathered around whispering and pointing. "It's the president's convoy," someone shouted. Thomas didn't care. He was busy tightening the bolts on a motorcycle engine. He had no time to watch big men show power. But then something unexpected happened. A tall man in military uniform stepped out of the car and looked around. It was President Ibrahim Traoré. His eyes scanned the crowd quickly until they landed on Thomas. He froze. "Thomas," the president whispered. Thomas didn't look up. "Please give me a moment." "I'm almost done here," he replied without knowing who he was speaking to, but the voice came again louder this time. "Thomas, is that really you?" Thomas turned slowly, wiping the sweat off his face with a rag. He stood up and stared. "Ibrahim?" They both stood in silence for a moment. Then something no one expected happened. The president took off his cap and hugged Thomas tightly. "I can't believe it's you," the president said, tears falling from his eyes. "My best friend, my brother." People gasped. The powerful president of Burkina Faso was crying, holding a roadside mechanic like a long-lost treasure. The bodyguard stood awkwardly, not knowing what to do. Thomas couldn't speak. His throat was tight, his chest heavy. He had not seen Ibrahim since they both left the village many years ago. They had promised to stay in touch, but life separated them. One became president. The other became a mechanic. "You promised me we would change this country together." Ibrahim said, "How did I let this happen to you?" Thomas smiled gently. "You didn't let anything happen. Life just took us on different paths." The president held Thomas's shoulders. I need to hear everything. Come with me. Leave this place." Thomas shook his head. "I can't. I have customers. I have work to do." Ibrahim wiped his tears and said, "Then I will sit with you here." And he did. The president of the country sat on a wooden stool beside the dirty mechanic. People watched in disbelief. Cars stopped, phones recorded. But Ibrahim didn't care. All he saw was his friend, his brother, still surviving with pride, honesty, and strength. He knew then that this was not just a meeting. It was a message. Thomas and President Ibrahim sat side by side on the old wooden bench outside the mechanic shed. Dust floated gently in the afternoon light as people continued watching from a distance. Nobody dared to interrupt them. It felt like the world had stopped to witness something sacred. "You haven't changed, Thomas," Ibrahim said softly. "Still stubborn, still humble." Thomas chuckled. "And you, still dramatic, sitting on a bench beside a dirty mechanic in front of the whole world. You know your guards are panicking." Ibrahim laughed through his tears. "Let them panic. They need to learn that power means nothing without loyalty and truth. You were always the one who reminded me of that." Thomas became quiet. His eyes grew misty. "Do you remember the day we were caught stealing mangoes from Old Man Kibbali's farm?" Ibrahim burst into laughter. "You ran so fast your shoe flew off and landed in the river. And you refused to leave me behind. That was the day I knew you were different." "Ibrahim, I told you then." Ibrahim said that one day we would lead this country together. Thomas nodded. "But I couldn't follow you. You had to care for your sister." Ibrahim said, "I know, and he paused. I should have searched harder for you. I should have helped." Thomas sighed and looked at his hands. "Ibrahim, I don't blame you. In fact, I'm proud of you. Look at what you've become. You are changing this country." The president looked down. "But how can I say I'm changing the country when my best friend, the most brilliant boy I knew, is still struggling to survive?" Just then, a small girl about 10 years old ran up to Thomas. "Papa, Mama said to remind you to come home early. There's no firewood to cook the rice." The little girl stopped suddenly and looked at the man beside her father. Her eyes widened. "Papa, is that the president?" Thomas smiled. "Yes, sweetheart. This is Uncle Ibrahim." The president smiled and opened his arms. "Come here, little one." The girl stepped forward shyly and hugged him. "She's beautiful," Ibrahim said. "What's her name?" "Her name is Amina," Thomas replied. "She's my pride and joy." Ibrahim nodded. "She deserves more than this, Thomas. You've done your part. Let me help." Thomas stood. "Ibrahim, listen. I don't need charity. I just want you to promise me something." "Anything," Ibrahim said. "Promise me you'll make this country a place where no child has to leave school to survive. Promise me you'll protect the honest ones, the hard-working ones, the people like me who never gave up, even when life was cruel." The president stood too. He took Thomas's hand and held it tightly. "I promise on my honor, I will do more, and I will begin today with you." That evening, President Ibrahim canceled all other plans. He returned to the palace and called an emergency meeting. He told his ministers, "Today, I sat with a man who reminded me why I became president. We must do more. We must find and lift up those who are quietly holding this country together with their bare hands." He didn't mention Thomas by name, but his heart burned with new fire. A fire lit by love, friendship, and the pain of seeing someone so good living in struggle. Meanwhile, Thomas walked home Amina's hand. His neighbors stared at him with new respect, but he didn't care about fame. He only cared about the fact that his friend had remembered him. And maybe, just maybe, that meant things were about to change. The sun rose slowly the next morning in Ouagadougou. Thomas was already at his roadside workshop tightening a motorcycle chain when he noticed something strange. Cars were slowing down and people were staring again. He turned to look and froze. A convoy of black government cars stopped right in front of him. It wasn't like yesterday. Today, it looked official. Men in suits and uniforms jumped out quickly. People gathered again, whispering, wondering what was happening this time. Then out came President Ibrahim Traoré. But this time, he wasn't alone. Behind him were journalists, cameramen, and some government officials. A small stage had been built right there beside Thomas's mechanic shed. Loudspeakers were placed and a microphone stood ready. Thomas stood in confusion. "What is this, Ibrahim?" The president walked up and gave him a gentle smile. "Thomas, yesterday I cried. Today I came to honor." He turned to the crowd and took the microphone. "People of Burkina Faso," he began. "Today I want to introduce you to my friend. Not just any friend. This man was the top of our class. He taught me math when I was failing. He shared food with me when I had none. He gave up his dreams to care for his sister. And while I went on to become your president, he worked quietly as a roadside mechanic." The crowd listened in silence. "This man," the president continued, "reminded me yesterday of what real service means. He asked me not to give him money, not to make him rich, but to promise him that I would work harder to help people like him. People who work day and night with honesty and humility." The crowd clapped. "Today, I want to make good on that promise." He turned to Thomas. "Thomas, I hereby announce that you will no longer work by the roadside. Starting now, your workshop will become a government-sponsored training center where you will teach young people how to fix cars and build skills for life. A building has already been prepared. Tools, equipment, and a small team of workers are ready to assist you." Thomas stood speechless. His mouth moved, but no words came out. Ibrahim continued, "Also, your daughter, Amina, will receive a full scholarship to any school of your choice until university, and your family will be moved to a better home provided by the government." Tears fell from Thomas's eyes. He dropped his tools and covered his face. He never expected any of this. All he wanted was to be remembered. Now he was being celebrated. The crowd clapped louder. Some wiped tears from their eyes. Others shouted, "Long live the president." Journalists rushed forward taking photos and recording videos. A few minutes later, Thomas was standing on the small stage holding the microphone with shaking hands. He looked at the crowd. "I don't know what to say," he began. "I never wanted fame. I only wanted to do the right thing. I'm not the only one. There are many people like me across this country. People who are good and strong but unnoticed. Please don't forget them." He turned to Ibrahim. "Thank you, my brother. Not just for this, but for remembering who you are and where you came from." That evening, the news spread across the country. TV stations, radio, and social media were filled with images and videos of the president honoring a roadside mechanic. The story touched many hearts. People cried, people cheered, and many began to believe that maybe things were truly changing. In a small house not far from the workshop, Amina hugged her mother with joy. "Mama, Papa is a hero." "Yes," her mother replied with tears in her eyes. "And today, the world finally sees it." That night, Ibrahim sat alone in his study, looking at an old photograph of two boys wearing school uniforms. One of them had his arm around the other. "Thank you, Thomas," he whispered. "You reminded me of who I am." 3 days after President Ibrahim Traoré surprised Thomas with the life-changing gift of a workshop and a new home, life was beginning to feel different. News of the roadside mechanic becoming a national hero spread across Burkina Faso like wildfire. People came from different places to greet Thomas, take pictures with him, and thank him for his honesty and humility. But as Thomas was sweeping the front of his new mechanic training center one morning, a black luxury car slowly pulled up. It was shiny and expensive, clearly not from around the neighborhood. Two men in suits stepped out. One of them was tall with dark glasses, while the other looked like someone important. "Are you Mr. Thomas?" the taller man asked. "Yes, I am. How can I help you?" Thomas replied calmly. "We have a business proposal," said the other man. "A private one." Thomas led them inside his small office. The shorter man looked around and then leaned forward, dropping a thick brown envelope on the table. "Inside this envelope is 5 million CFA, he whispered. Thomas stared at the envelope. "What is this for?" The man smiled. "We know you're close to the president. Everyone knows. We also know that he trusts you. What we want is simple. Very simple." Thomas frowned. "What do you mean?" The tall man spoke this time. "At his next visit, just make sure he drinks something we will give you. That's all. After that, you'll be richer than your dreams. We'll give you your own car shop, houses in Abidjan and Dar, and your daughter will study abroad." Thomas stared at them. He couldn't believe what he was hearing. "You want me to poison the president?" "Shoo," the tall man warned, looking around. "Keep your voice down." The shorter man leaned in again. "It's not poison. It's just a special drink. He'll fall sick for a while, but you'll be safe. We have people everywhere." Thomas stood up slowly and crossed his arms. "Let me think about it. Come back in 2 days. The man smiled and shook his hand. "Good decision. We'll be in touch." As soon as they left, Thomas rushed home. His wife Esther was cooking when he barged in. "Esther's," he shouted. "What is it, my husband?" she asked, scared. He sat down and told her everything from the visit, the envelope, the money, and the evil request. Esther dropped her spoon and covered her mouth. "Oh my God, people are wicked. That man, the president, has done nothing but help us." "I know," Thomas replied. "That's why I will never agree to this. I only told them to come back so they won't suspect anything." "So what will you do?" Esther asked. "I will go to the president," he said. "He must know about this immediately." That evening, Thomas took the brown envelope and the secret phone number the men gave him. With the help of the president's assistant, he arranged a private meeting. When Thomas entered the presidential office, Ibrahim stood up with a smile. "My brother, what brings you here?" Thomas placed the envelope and paper on the table and said, "Your enemies want me to betray you." the president's face changed. Thomas told him everything. Their words, their faces, the promise of wealth, the evil plan. He ended by saying, "My president, I owe you my life. I can never hurt you. I knew I had to tell you." President Ibrahim sat back quietly for a moment, deeply moved. "Thomas, you just saved my life." The president quickly called his security team and handed over the evidence. Within hours, a secret team was sent to track the men. They were caught at a hotel just outside the city. When the president heard they had been arrested, he invited Thomas to sit beside him in the investigation room. The man who offered the bribe was sitting in chains. "Why did you do it?" the president asked calmly. The man looked ashamed. I was sent. Some people, they want power. They said if I helped remove you, they'd give me a seat in the new government." "Who are the people?" the officers asked. The man hesitated, then whispered, "They are powerful. But I was greedy. I didn't think he would find out. I blamed the devil." "Don't blame the devil." Thomas said, "You had a choice. You chose evil." The man was later sentenced to 45 years in prison with no option for parole. His picture was shown on the evening news and the people of Burkina Faso were shocked. That night, President Ibrahim called Thomas again. "You didn't just save me," he said. "You saved this country from falling into the wrong hands. What can I ever do to thank you?" Thomas smiled. "You already did by being a good friend." President Ibrahim hugged him tightly. "Number, you are more than a friend. From today, you are my brother." Days passed and the story of Thomas's loyalty spread across the entire nation. Newspapers called him the mechanic who saved the president, while school children were taught about his courage and honesty. The people of Burkina Faso gained new hope, seeing that true friendship and good character could still be rewarded. President Ibrahim Traoré called for a national press conference. Thomas and his family were seated in the front row, unsure of what was about to happen. When the president came to the podium, he smiled warmly and said, "My fellow Burkina, today is not about me. It's about someone who reminded me and reminded all of us what loyalty, truth, and friendship truly mean." He pointed at Thomas. "This man had every opportunity to betray me. He was offered riches, houses, and power. But instead of choosing evil, he chose to protect me. He chose honesty." The crowd clapped loudly, many with tears in their eyes. "Today," the president continued, "I want to honor not just Thomas, but his entire family." He turned to Amina and called her to the stage. She walked up slowly, her heart pounding, holding her father's hand. "I'm proud to announce that Amina, Thomas's daughter, will receive a full government scholarship to study in any university of her choice, anywhere in the world. From now until the day she graduates, all her school fees, books, travel, and accommodation will be paid for." The crowd clapped even louder. Cameras flashed. Amina burst into tears, hugging her father tightly. But the president wasn't done. "Now, where is Madame Esther?" he asked, smiling. Thomas's wife stood up slowly, wiping tears from her eyes. She never imagined such a day would come. "Madame Esther," the president said gently, "you stood by your husband. You encouraged him to do the right thing. You raised a good family with love and strength. As a gift from the people of Burkina Faso, I am opening a big modern supermarket for you. You will be the owner. You will never worry about survival again." Esther gasped and dropped to her knees in gratitude. "Thank you, sir. Thank you," she cried. President Ibrahim lifted her up and said, "No, my sister. I should be the one thanking you." Later that day, a new building was unveiled in the heart of the city. It was named Thomas and Esther Supermar. Inside were shelves filled with goods, freezers, cash counters, and staff waiting to work. Everything was ready. Thomas's old roadside workshop was now one of the biggest mechanic training centers in the country. Young boys and girls were already enrolling, eager to learn from the man who became a national symbol of loyalty. That evening, Thomas and his family gathered for dinner at their new home. The table was full, the air filled with laughter and joy. Thomas raised his glass of juice and said, "To my wife, my daughter, and my brother, the president, today we celebrate not just success, but friendship and truth." Esther smiled. "To truth," Amina shouted. "To my scholarship," they all laughed. Back at the presidential palace, Ibrahim Traoré stood by his window looking up at the stars. He whispered softly to himself, "Some presidents are protected by guards, guns, and gates. But me, I'm protected by a friend." And that truly was the beginning of a new chapter for Burkina Faso. A country where even a poor roadside mechanic could rise, where honesty was stronger than riches, and where friendship could change the world. Tune in to Black Struggles for more inspiring stories like this.